Now some real controversy today at the weigh-in for the world heavyweight contest between V.Klittschko and Derek Chisora. The fight is in Munich tomorrow evening, but at the weigh-in, have a look at this. Chisora, the British fighter, stepped up to face the WBC champion, and then this happened. He slapped him. It's unprecedented, but it's not the first time that Chisora has done something strange at a weigh-in and towards his opponent. Klitschko, for his part, kept his cool and said he would deal with it in the ring tomorrow. This was condemned by many who were there, including our boxing commentator Mike Costello, who joins us now on the line. Mike, tell us what you made of this.
Well, I thought it was a disgraceful act by Derek Chisora today, because this is a sport that survives in a civilised society because the violence is controlled, and today he lost control when he needed to retain it. He's had this theory, this notion throughout the build-up, and in fact for a couple of years, because twice in the past he'd signed to fight Vitali's brother Vladimir, and those fights for various reasons didn't come off. But he's had this notion, this theory, that the Klitschko brothers are spooked by opponents whose behaviour is eccentric, slightly crazy, out of the ordinary. And I think what we saw today at the weigh-in was an extension of that. But it was disgraceful, and it was an attempt by Chisora to close the gap between himself and Vitali Klitschko, because if you look at Klitschko's record, he's had 15 world title fights. Well, Chisora's only had 17 fights at any level, most of those at domestic level. So it was an attempt, I think, on Chisora's part to try to close the gap. And look, I'm not naive, and I'm not denying that this will have boosted interest in the fight. You know, it's a big heavyweight title fight, but at the same time, that doesn't make it acceptable, and it doesn't make it right.
We have to say, I imagine that this won't really have bothered Vitali Klitschko too much, Mike. He's been around an awful long time, and he's seen similar antics in the past.
Yes, and 10 or 15 minutes afterwards, when Chisora had been ushered away by his entourage, Klitschko stood around to talk to German television and newspaper reporters for some time, and for much of the time he was smiling and chuckling to himself. Initially, he did look very shocked, and I think that's one of the reasons that he didn't respond. But he was, I think, a master of his own emotions today. He was able to control his emotions. He was able to retain his dignity, the dignity that's marked the career of himself and his brother Vladimir, actually, throughout. They've had 34 world title fights between them, and Vitali's unbeaten now in 9 years, a run spanning 11 fights. And so initially he looked to be slightly unsettled, but I can't see it having any effect on him tomorrow night whatsoever. And
he remains the overwhelming favourite, I'm presuming, Mike. And of course, although he's Ukrainian, Germany is, in effect, his second home.
Yes, he's had 34 fights in Germany. His entire professional career has been based here. He has boxed in various other places around the world, 5 or 6 other countries, but that's because of the draw of opponents, or because the promoters in those countries put up higher bids to stage those particular contests. But pretty much his entire career has been based here in Germany. He's got a home in Hamburg, as well as homes in Los Angeles and in the Ukraine. I think one of the issues for the Chisora team, and one of their hopes and aspirations really, is that Vitali Klitschko has been spending a lot of time in the last couple of years devoting himself to politics. He's the leader of a political party back in Ukraine, and he's attempting to field some candidates in the parliamentary elections there later in the year. And there's just a hope in the Chisora team that maybe he's losing concentration and losing motivation in boxing. As Chisora himself said to me yesterday, he thinks that Klitschko's lost his mojo. But I think if ever he got it back, then what happened today will have done that for him.
All right, Mike Costello in Munich, thank you very much indeed. Coverage on BBC Radio 5 Live. Mike commentating from 10 o'clock.